everybody.
Hey, I'm Courtney.
I'm Chloe. This is 6 Feet Unfiltered, Season 1 finale. Very exciting.
Yes, it's been a freaking wild season.
It has. And we've made it through a whole season.
Yeah, but this feels really natural. And I feel like every comment that we get makes me like, okay, we can't not do it.
I know. It hasn't even been that many, but just getting a few like, oh, I hope you keep doing this podcast.
Or I just found you guys. There was one that I just found you guys and you're like my friends now.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally all that matters in my head.
Yeah, it's been fun. And we'll be able to look back at this forever.
I also have to say, going through all of these episodes and deep diving in them has actually forced me to do the same in my own life. I've noticed it's
Think
like
about,
that
why people are
28
doing
days
certain
it
things.
takes to build a habit.
Yeah.
I've now built this habit of trying to understand people more so how they want to be understood versus how I'm understanding them.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I feel like it's so easy to show up and do this is because it's beneficial in that aspect. I'm hoping that saying that out loud, I feel like it should hopefully be helping other people too.
Okay.
All right.
Today, we're diving into 6 Feet Under Season 1, Episode 13, Knock Knock, the season finale. This episode delivers the show's signature dark humor and existential gut punches in equal measure. When a corporate golf outing turns fatal, Tracy Montrose Blair returns to the Fisher home in peak chaotic fashion to plan a resplendent funeral for her beloved Aunt Lillian. Meanwhile, Brenda and Nate spiral after a near-death car crash and an even more shocking health reveal that sets up serious stakes for next season. David takes a stand like never before, publicly coming out in front of his church community in a powerful sermon that might be one of his most vulnerable moments yet. Ruth quits and unquits the flower shop, reconnects with Nikolai.
She got fired.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Gets fired and then
unfired.
rehired. And reconnects with Nikolai in dramatic fashion and reclaims her independence with flair. Claire wrestles with her feelings for Gabe as his behavior becomes increasingly dangerous, while Parker's party becomes the backdrop for some disturbing foreshadowing. And through it all, the Fishers continue to navigate love, loss, and what it means to show up for each other, whether it's in the prep room or at a wake-turned-christening party. This finale ties together threads of family, fear, and figuring out what really matters. Let's get into it.
Yikes. Corporate scheming takes an absurdly dark turn in the season 1 finale of 6 Feet Under. While Kroner's resident weasel, Matthew Gilardi, tries to impress his hard-nosed boss, Mrs. Huntley, on the golf course, her aggressive tactics lead to an unexpected casualty. One poorly aimed shot later, Lillian Montrose is struck in the head and killed instantly. Enter, once again, everyone's favorite chaotic funeral home client, Tracy Montrose Blair, now grieving the loss of her Aunt Lillian. It's an ironically tragic loss that blends 6 Feet Under's signature dark humor with the ever-present randomness of death. Okay, I'm not going to lie. That is a fear of mine, is getting hit in the head.
With a golf ball?
A ball. And dying. Did you ever watch Simon Birch?
No, what's that?
It's an amazingly emotional movie where this young boy who is special needs, his mom dies when he's young, I think, but she dies by walking to one of his baseball games and gets hit in the head with the baseball ball. And so like the whole movie is all about how he grows up, sort of. And then, yeah, it's a good one. You should watch it.
Sad.
Okay, so first, these are my thoughts from this death scene. This woman, what's her name? Mitzi. Calling Gilardi shallow and amoral, which I'm no literature graduate, but I'm assuming that means he has no fucking morals. And that is that. And then I also was thinking that she was going to be the one to die when she had her like coughing attack. And then she's like, I need a drink after this. And I'm like, you're going to drop dead. Mm-hmm. Might as well grab a Big Mac on your way out.
And she lets out a big belch.
Yeah. And then I also was like, oh my God, of course it's Tracy's aunt that died. Like, and I didn't even pick up your note.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I mean, now that you say that, go ahead.
Yeah. So the conversation that they were having before
They murdered somebody.
Yeah, lets
Sort of.
her golf ball go and hit Lillian in the head. They were talking, Mitzi was saying to Matt Gilardi, like, we're not exactly liquid right now. We need to be raking in like this amount of money because we're not exactly liquid right now. Do you understand me? And she said some other ridiculous shit. And then that's when she said
that he's a shallow.
You are shallow and amoral. And I love that in a man, or something like that.
Lord help me.
So weird and gross. And he was just like, yeah.
Okay, but don't you also think that this is like a great quick picture painting of CEO?
Yeah. I love that. I love that they are throwing that shade because
it's clearly been happening for a long time.
Forever.
Yeah.
There's always been shitty suits.
So they are struggling financially.
So apparently Kroner is like struggling financially, which I am curious to continue keeping a pulse on that as we continue rewatching, because that was never anything that I remember, at least at this point, being something that was in my head. So Nate is taking his funeral director's licensing exam again for the second time, and he gets a beep from Brenda that says, I need you, B. And he puts it away to finish the exam. But okay, how the fuck did beepers, did your parents ever have like a beeper?
Yes, and you could send a message by typing it in on your phone. So they also had phones? Your house phone.
Oh.
So you could page somebody from a payphone, and when it says to leave the message, you could not predictive text, but where you 1, 2, 3 to get a C. And
what did they call that again?
A9? T9.
Yeah. Oh, I was so fast at that. I was like the best T9.
I'm not even surprised about that, actually. The superlative award goes to.
Anyway.
So yeah, I think that's how beepers work.
Crazy.
A very quick piece of technology, in and out quick.
Yes. So then David at home opens the door of the funeral home to Tracy Montrose Blair, who has come in a frantic state to arrange a resplendent funeral for her Aunt Lillian.
With a new hairdo, by the way.
New hair. She's a blondie
for
now.
the third time. This is her third hairdo of the season.
What was the middle one? Because first she was brown haired, right?
And then she had highlights.
Oh, okay.
So it's and now she's
just full on blonde.
Yep.
Interesting.
Get it, girl.
I knew, like, I realized that she had different hair, but I never, I guess, thought about the reasoning behind it. Just probably trying to.
I wonder if there is actually a psychology behind why they wrote that in there, or if she just did it because I think when we first meet Tracy, the brown hair makes her fucking unlikable.
Oh.
Crazy.
Okay.
Unlikable, crazy, like, oh my God, just please stop talking. But now I see her more, and I'm not generalizing blondes in this at all. I'm just saying on her specific body type and skin tone and with the hair, she seems more in control of chaos. Does that make sense?
Maybe like just a little bit more.
She seems more sure of herself or confident or something.
Interesting.
And I do think it has to do, maybe not with the specific blonde hair, but just that I think that looks better on her.
It's like a power glow up kind of thing for her.
She's feeling more confident in herself too.
Yeah. I like that.
I'd be curious. Anyways, yeah. Tracy explains
we
to
saw
David.
Lillian pass away earlier at the hands of Mitzi's hooked golf ball. So Tracy explains to David that Lillian was the most important person in Tracy's life, and also that Tracy is a professional party planner and did a huge party for New Line for the Golden Globes the previous year. And she says the Hollywood Reporter called it resplendent, and it was. Aunt Lillian's funeral needs to be equally resplendent. I died at the way that she said that, and the look on David's face afterward, he was just like, okay. And also Tracy refuses to sign the paperwork, which was being
weird. But I didn't put that together until later in the episode.
That she was refusing to sign it?
Yes. I thought she was just being like out of it.
Yeah. So then Nate walks into Brenda's house and she's upset with him, asking what took him so long, because remember, she beeped him or paged him or whatever.
And they can't respond back.
No. And Nate reminds her that he had to take the funeral director's licensing exam again, and she apologizes and tells Nate that she has to go see Billy in the hospital. She says, he needs me. I can feel it. Will you come with me, please? And Nate says, of course. Props to Nate for agreeing to do that, because holy shit, he must just really love her so much, because after Billy literally tried to kill both of them. Okay, sure, I'll come see him with you.
Noting too, the words of course are so much different than fine, I guess, or even just yes.
Yeah.
Like, of course to me, I hear, yes, I will do this and I want to do this.
Yeah.
Even if I don't want to do this, I want to do this for you.
Yeah.
It was just a really powerful statement. I also, what was the last? Oh, he needs me, I can feel it. That kind of irritated me just a little bit, because I feel like it's Brenda that needs him to need her at this moment right now.
Yeah, almost like projecting.
Yes, and which is not her fault, because I do think she's a victim of in all of this. But we can see that is still having lasting effects on her psyche and even just her own self-identity.
Yeah. I have a note kind of similar to that later on about her, but I agreed. She was not herself in this episode. I felt she wasn't like giving her typical Brenda.
Agreed. And I wonder if we're thinking about the same spot. Was it in the car?
I don't remember.
Okay.
So Claire's hanging out in her hearse with Parker, and Parker invites her to a party that she's having at her house over the weekend. She asks Claire about Gabe, and Claire tells her he's incredibly strong. He's a lot stronger than he thinks. And Parker tells her to bring him to the party if she wants to, and Claire says that she will. I, in this moment, was feeling very sus of Parker here, but I also don't think she does anything. I was remembering, and I'm like, I don't remember her doing anything weird here, so I kind of feel like I'm starting to trust her a little bit more, but my like hackles went up at this moment where she's like, oh, bring Gabe if you want, almost too casually.
I felt this way for a long time. Yes, there were several parts where I was, I think I even put that there, and it ended up.
Yeah. Later on, I think you do have a similar note about Parker. Nothing really ends up, not to spoil it, but nothing crazy ends up happening with Parker, but she just gave this, yeah.
I can't even, like you said, I can't remember either, but yes, it did seem
She's
odd.
Kind
it
of
was
giving,
like a weird,
slimy vibes, but we're just not sure. She's a hard character to trust.
Yes, that might be the whole thing.
Anyway, Brenda and Nate are driving to the hospital to visit Billy, and Brenda's stressing out the whole time about what Billy's thinking, worried about him being mad at her, and Nate's reassuring to Brenda. But honestly, here, this is what I was talking about. Brenda seems so unlike herself in this scene. I'm sure that was intentional, but it really threw me off to see her like that. So I guess it just goes to show the power that these types of abusive dynamics can have over people, regardless of how level-headed they are.
And the lasting effects. Like, Billy's not even here right now, and he's causing this disruption in her brain. This whole scene with Brenda and Nate on their way to see Billy, there's so much to unpack here, because the dynamics between the both of them were weird. I loved how Nate was still so supportive, but he did say, what did he say to her? He's a danger to himself. He could have hurt himself. He did hurt himself. And trying to justify, it's just odd to try to justify that Brenda did the right thing, because it's clearly obvious she did. And it's frustrating for Nate, I bet, that it's not as obvious to her.
Him needing to hammer it through her head.
And I can think of situations throughout my entire life like that, where I have been Brenda or I have been Nate. And so it's just another thing. It's hard to, oh my God, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it was very frustrating, especially since Brenda has, up until this point, been such a strong, independent, confident,
like you said, level-headed. And
like for the most part, level-headed. She has her quirks, but yeah, it was really sad. So then Ruth is at work at the flower shop on the phone with Hiram, and he asks to take her out to dinner that night, and Nikolai overhears the conversation and tells Ruth as soon as she hangs up that he needs her to stay at work tonight, which was kind of rude. Hilarious. Like, it was, rude, but the way Nikolai speaks, he's just so, everything he says is just like comedy because of the way he says it.
And he could have been a little bit less obvious about them.
Yes, that's part of it. Like, he's just so obvious, just like grumbling, listening, and then he's very busy right now. And Ruth,
they're the only ones in the shop.
Literally. And Ruth refuses, and Nikolai tells her that he's the boss, and she says that his authority does not extend to her personal life, and for him to stop behaving like a spoiled child, and that she's chosen Hiram, and then he fires her, and she says, "You can't do that." And he goes, I just do that.
Everything. It's so true that go Ruth.
Mhm.
Like, amen to her for speaking up for herself very loudly.
Yeah, and firmly.
Uh-huh. I kind of just liked this whole scene, even though I don't like it.
Yeah, it's so annoying that Nikolai was firing her.
He
like
really
that.
is a little fucking baby.
He is.
So yes, Nikolai is a jealous little shit. And then I love Ruth's line here about the authority. I'm going to write that one in my back pocket.
Yes. So Rico and David are in the prep room together with the body of Aunt Lillian. And as Rico sizes up the job, David gets a fax from Tracy ordering to change the casket, the flowers, the music, and the times of the viewing and the ceremony. Rico and David are bickering back and forth for a minute. Rico says, tell her she can't pull that shit after she signs the contract. That's what I'd do if I were partner. And David says, well, you're not, so let me handle it. I just need you to make her look as good as she possibly can. Rico's like, I always do that. And David says, of course you do, but this funeral is special and we stand to earn a lot of money. And Rico says, which I won't see any of. We just gave you a raise, says David. Rico rolls his eyes. But I wrote here, so what are the implications for the Fishers if they were to make Rico a partner? Like, if he wants it so bad and he's so fucking good at his job, why are they just like, that's never going to happen?
Right, because there is a way to have him like buy an equity and he could be vested. So saying like you work after 10 years of working, you have this much of
something like why
there's
they're
ways around
they're
it.
not even willing to even consider it at all. And I was just like,
part of me thinks it's because
deal,
it says Fisher and Sons.
Well, yeah,
and
like,
they're maybe stuck on that. I agree with you.
Yeah, it's just kind of, I mean, they cannot operate without him.
Yes. So I am sensing that Rico is super butthurt about some things here. He's being very childish in the way that he's trying to express his emotions. I feel like I'm talking to my child. His emotions and anger and maybe his own frustration. And I have a feeling that has to do with the fact that he does want to be a partner, but I think there's more to it. I think there's more resentment that he now knows that David is gay. Mm-hmm. And in this specific scenario, it felt to me like he was trying to exert more of his masculine authority over him as like, I'm a straight man. So as far as the authority line goes, a gay man is one step below me. And it just felt odd. I could
being so disrespectful.
Yes.
Like so much more disrespectful. So Nate and Brenda find Billy and Brenda goes to talk to him while Nate waits for her in another room. They're at the mental hospital apparently. So Billy is in a very calm and almost detached state. He's very apologetic, but also very robotic. He says, inside, I feel like tears are streaming down my cheeks, but they're not, are they? Which just gave me chills up and down my spine. This really paints a vivid and terrifying picture of mental health struggles, seeing how Billy's medication affects him, but the alternative is so much worse. Also, it's all right. It's okay. You're so beautiful, he says.
That was fucking
embracing
wild.
Brenda. Yeah, that was very unsettling to me.
Yes, it felt so weird.
It was, because it's like, we know they're not incestuous. Like, I don't believe that they are, but it's like,
any other words could have been said.
Yeah. He's literally rubbing the back of her head like, you're so beautiful.
Without a smile on his face, too. It was so
and it's
odd.
just like, why is that the thing? Like, maybe I love you so much or something, but like, you're so beautiful. It was just so unsettling. I don't even know what else to say about it.
The first thing that I noticed, too, when they walked in there was Billy looks fucking terrible. He looks like my stepmom after a night of craziness in a robe. Just like not understanding where she is. Like, I don't even know what's going on. And it was wild to me. And then one of the things that he said was, whatever I was feeling before, I'm not feeling now. And that kind of hit me because I'm thinking how exhausting for him to be so full of these feelings. So remember, he can't even control when he's not taking his meds. He's feeling all of these things that his body and his mind can't control. And he's just overwhelmed with all of it. And some of them are really bad feelings, but some of them were probably really good feelings too, right?
Like his creativity.
Yes. And you go from all of this, like this, I think I've told you in one of the last episodes, I actually don't like Billy, but I can see myself in him.
Yeah.
And this is one of those moments that like full of feeling and having all of these feelings. Granted, most of mine are really good feelings, where his were not, which is why we're probably on different medications. But to go from all of these overwhelming good and bad feelings to then nothing because of the drugs that they put him on. And I don't know, it just hurts me to watch this happen. And I wish there were some other ways to treat patients with this diagnosis that Billy has so that he can still feel some of his feelings. But on even a minor level, taking an antidepressant can really numb all of these feelings too. And a lot of people don't understand that, sure, it does numb the bad, but it also numbs the good ones. And that just really sucks.
Yes, I've talked about before how I used to be a teacher. I quit teaching. It was really brutal. I'm not going to get super into all of that, but during my last couple of years, everyone was miserable. Like, it wasn't just
like
me.
Kids or teachers or everything.
Teachers. I mean, like, every teacher. It was like
Were you guys sitting in the break room talking about which antidepressants you just got prescribed?
Oh, we would do that, but no, truly, it was like it was like walking in and there's an energy field of like
Negative?
just despair, like literally, because it's like it was so bad. I cannot even put into words how bad it is. What?
Just when you walked in, what was the color?
Like black or gray. Just like gross. My stomach would start turning into knots as soon as I got on my exit to go. It was for several years in a row. It was so horrible. And then that's what I'm saying. It wasn't just me feeling this way. It was everyone around me, every other adult around me was feeling just horrible all the time. And anyway, connecting to this, we would talk a lot about different meds and stuff that we would be on and trying. But I remember specifically one interaction I had with somebody, and we were standing in the hallway outside my classroom door before school started or something like that. And I asked her, how are you doing? Or maybe it was like, how are your new meds or something like that? And because we were obviously talking about something like that, that was the conversation.
She must have started a new one.
Her words exactly were, well, I don't cry anymore. Ugh. And I have never forgotten that, because it was like the darkest response and conversation.
But you probably could relate to it.
Oh yeah, because it's like I knew exactly. But that's exactly like what's going on with Billy right now. It's like you're in so much turmoil mentally and internally, and then you take this med that just mutes everything. But it doesn't make things okay, but it maybe turns your tears off, your
orgasms too.
Yes. That is very real too. But yeah, that is such a sad thing about just meds in general, antidepressants, a lot of them. So this whole next scene is amazing. Claire is dreaming that she's smoking a joint at home on the couch, watching home videos with Nathaniel's ghost. She's upset that there's no videos of her. And he says to her, oh, cheer up, kitten. Maybe all of that attention you never got will motivate you to get off your lazy ass and do something interesting with your life. And Claire looks at him and she's like, and like laughs in disbelief. It was so funny. I loved her stupefied laughter there. And then she wakes up to Ruth barging in and announcing that she was fired. And she goes, that sucks. I just love Claire so much. Ruth says, yes, it does. And Ruth also tells her that she thinks she was a victim of sexual harassment. Claire's like, what? And Ruth explains to her, Nikolai wanted me to work late to keep me from having dinner with Hiram. And when I refused, he fired me. Claire says, oh my God, what a dork. It sounds like you're better off out of there. And Ruth's like, yeah, I have a certificate in floral arranging. I can get a job anywhere. Yeah, screw Nikolai. Exactly. And then she walks out and Claire's just sitting there confused.
That is literally the whole scene, by the way.
Her look is just, it's everything. Like, I can't even make it, but she's just like, what the fuck just happened?
It was very weird. It was like Ruth was talking. Ruth got everything out of that conversation that she needed.
Yeah.
And all Claire did was agree with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to Ruth's point, she's absolutely right.
Oh, she is. And it's just like a moment of her needing
validation.
Needing validation, and a very, very adorable mother-daughter moment between those two, which we don't get a lot of.
We don't.
So
that was a like closeness moment for them, a very natural.
And I liked how Claire was just supportive. Like her instinct was just to be supportive.
Yeah.
So when there's not tensions about, underlying things, that's their, default, which is nice.
Part of that whole scene that hit me was the no videos of Claire when she was a kid, and Nathaniel talking about how it's kind of been like, been there, done that. By the time she came along, they were probably just exhausted. I will tell you, the third kid is the hardest. So that is a picture perfect of exactly what happens. And I have 4. But I thought it was funny because I think any parent that has more than one kid could relate to fully filling out that baby book for their first kid. And by the time their second or third or fourth rolls around, that's all that's happening is everyone's just rolling around. Like there's no anything left.
Everyone's just rolling around. Yeah.
I don't think I understood anything more than that about parenthood. And to be fair, I am a type B. Chloe's going to have her baby books filled out front to back. There will probably be a booger from the first time she snuffed it out of her nose in a little thing. You'll have all of the teeth alphabetically organized. And
alphabetically. You were going to name them.
Yeah. And I did start a baby book with Willa, but I just started it. Willa's my oldest. She's 6. And I cannot find it for the life of me. I don't know where it is. I never did anything farther than I think maybe her birthday.
I think that's okay, though. I mean, you take a lot of pictures. I don't know how...
True. I use Facebook for that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know how realistic that is. I don't have any kids.
I love the idea, though.
Yeah. I mean... But
you were so artistic. I could totally see that being something that you hop onto.
Well, yeah. I think there's things that... I mean, I hyperfixate, and I like projects.
Mm-hmm.
Like this
that
is like
would be
a
perfect project for
you know what I mean? But I don't know how realistic it is. Like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know how many people actually do. It seems like the thing that I see more often now is like that book that Rob got you.
Yes, from Shutterfly.
Yeah, just like picture books like that, because it's so easy.
That's cute too.
Yeah.
And still fun to put together.
Yeah.
Side note, so my grandma, my dad's mom, she passed away when I was pregnant with Violet because I named her middle name after her. So what, 2 years ago? She must have passed away 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years. During that time, my aunt and uncle who lived over there, they're in Bismarck, sent back some things to my sister and I from Graham's that like mementos kind of a thing. And one of the things that I got was my dad's, who's still alive, by the way, baby book.
Oh.
And they're from the boomer age. So my dad's 15 years older than my mom, I think. Somewhere in that realm. So his mom was much older than my mom's mom.
Yeah.
I don't think that they were part of that giant boomer, but they had 8 kids.
Holy
okay.
shit.
But this baby book was fully filled out.
Yeah.
And so I brought it to my dad and I was like, Dad, first of all, why did I get this? Do you want your baby book? And I think I still have it, actually, because we went through it and I was showing him some stuff. But so they did do that back in the day.
Yeah.
They were religious about it.
That was like, that's what I'm saying. Like back then, we have a phone with a camera on it to take pictures just so easily. And so everything's so much more digitized and easier to document now. So back then it was more common
to write things down.
Yeah. But I mean, whatever makes you
happy.
It is
a really sweet idea. I love the idea. Just too much for me.
Yeah, and that's okay. So then on the drive back from the hospital, Brenda asks Nate if he's ever thought about getting married. And Nate says, sure, but they've only been together for 6 months. So Nathaniel has been dead for 6 months. We were talking about that before. We were wondering. And they get into an argument here. And Brenda says,
because she said it was a year.
Yeah, yes. So
Brenda said it was a year, and I have a whole note about that.
Yeah, and then Nate says it's been 6 months, and they get into an argument. Brenda says, I didn't realize you were counting the days, and Brenda's pushing him away again, and she almost crashes head-on into an oncoming semi, and Nate jerks the wheel, and they crash off the road into a parked car.
Which is fucking scary.
Crazy, yeah.
A couple things. This is me taking notes in time watching this. We find out that it's been about a year since Nathaniel Sr.'s death. And did Brenda just propose? Okay, never mind. It's only been 6 months according to Nate, which is hilarious. I thought it was hilarious because that's exactly like me and Rob in this scenario right now. I'd be like, we've been together for a year. When are we going to do this? And Rob would be like, we've actually been together for 6 months and like 3 weeks, by the way. And this was the point that we talked. Remember you said earlier in the episode that Brenda was acting kind of off.
Yeah.
This proposal seemed like a cry for help to me in this moment. I don't know if it really was, but it just obviously was weird.
She's like shaken up. So like this whole Billy thing just knocked her on her ass. She's just
Not surprised though that she would be the one to pop the question.
Yeah.
Because that's how me and Rob did it. I basically said, what's going on? And then, interesting how Brenda and Nate's fight, that scene, crash, boom, and then we quickly go right to the dead body on the table with David and Rico standing there. And first thing I wrote was, is there some kind of foreshadowing here? Because that seemed very intentional.
Mm-hmm. I didn't notice that, but when I read your notes, I put that together. That is. I wonder if that was intentional. But obviously, neither one of them died from the car crash. So.
No,
but I think,
and I knew that neither of them, one of them was going to.
Yeah,
but it felt like
foreboding.
We should keep an eye on that.
Yeah. David and Rico are in the prep room again, and Rico asks David if they can host Augusto's christening party at the funeral home. I'm interested to unpack this with you. I'm only asking because I still think of your family as my family, and I really want you all to be there. Bullshit, Rico. I am not buying this at all. David falls for it, though. So I feel 100% like in that moment, Rico was just fluffing his feathers, like kissing David's ass so he would say yes, basically. So
I'm also pissed at David. I'm surprised I didn't write this in there because I was pissed that if you look at the look on his face when he's asking at first,
he was going to say no.
Going to say no.
Yeah.
And then Rico started licking his butthole, and David is like, "Oh, that feels so good." yeah, of course. Like, that's not cool either. I don't like that.
No, I agree. I was going to be annoyed at David, kind of, if he said no. But at the same time, David also kind of has a right to be pissed at Rico because of how rude Rico was to him when he came out to him. He basically was like,
true, they've never
had
that conversation after
No,
that.
The last interaction they had was Rico basically telling David, I don't support you for being gay.
Yeah.
And so things are like awkward between them. But that's why it was like so shady, I feel like, of Rico to just be like, oh, I still think of you as family.
Yes, that's
blah, blah, blah. But then, yeah, agreed.
You could see the look on Rico's face too, that he was trying to convince himself that.
Yeah, he was like, But I totally do agree about David too. He was like being kind of, I mean, it still would have been kind of annoying if he would have said no. At the same time, I get it, but it's like, I don't know.
The thing is, David should have said yes to begin with. He should have. David has so much. He did do a lot of growing in this episode, but he's also so uptight. Like I think he needs to get his butthole licked because he just is too much right now. And like, he's just focused. He's like hyper fixated on things, this funeral or whatever, or the Tracy Montrose Blair funeral or whatever. And yeah. I agree. He was damned if he did and damned if he didn't at this point. Like he.
Well, anyway,
I guess I'm mad about how he said yes.
Yeah, agreed. He just submitted to the brown nosing. So David falls for that, and they banter back and forth a little bit after. And Rico compliments David on his display of knowledge for the cosmetic aspect of the body prep because he says like, "Oh, wouldn't you rather do this?" And David's like, "Why would I want to do that when you could do this and this?" And Rico's like, "You're
paying attention."
Yeah. So. As they're talking, Rico picks up a fax and David is like, oh, great. Now what? Tracy's decided to have Aunt Lillian cremated and have her ashes placed in a Fabergé egg, which I thought was funny just how he said it. But I did not know what a Fabergé egg was. So I looked it up for anyone else who doesn't know. A Fabergé egg is a jeweled, intricately designed egg created by the House of Fabergé in Russia, primarily for the Russian imperial family between 1885 and 1917. These luxurious eggs often feature gold, enamel, and precious stones, with some containing hidden surprises inside. They're considered
like a dead body?
I don't know, maybe. They're considered masterpieces of craftsmanship and collectibles today. And the fax says that at the Fisher's house, the fax says Father Jack is gay, which I don't remember this from before.
I vaguely remembered it.
And Rico picked it up. He's like, I think you should look at this. And David takes it. He's like, oh, good grief.
Which is one of my favorite lines. I love that word. Yeah, that was something.
Yeah, it's just like, what the hell? Father Jack is gay? Like, what?
And why did that come? And why did that come to the fax?
Yeah, to the funeral home.
I think right at face value, it was so shocking. I didn't put my thoughts together fast enough. Later in this episode, I have my own thoughts after things have kind of whatever.
Yeah, I'm interested to unpack that too. So then the next thing we see is Nate in the back of an ambulance with Brenda, and Brenda's in a neck brace, like on a stretcher, and she's unconscious. And Nate starts freaking out, asking if she's dead, and the EMT is telling him that she's going to be okay.
Yeah, and they're kind of talking in third person about passenger number 2 is aware, has no recollection of the crash, kind of a thing. But you can just see the look in Nate's eyes. He's very confused. How odd. How, like, out of body would you feel to wake up, not know what happened, and then see the person that you love in a neck brace,
oh my God,
unconscious? Yeah. Oh my God.
Very scary, very sad.
I thought the EMT was like...
He was reassuring to Nate. At least he was like, she's going to be okay. She's going to be okay. But it was still just like, oh my God, what the fuck? And it was like a quick 2-second scene. So Ruth and Hiram then are at a fancy restaurant eating dinner. Hiram tells her that he needs to tell her something. He says, I'm not proud of this. I've met someone. I never meant for this to happen. I wasn't looking, and I'd like to pursue it. And he's stammering and he's nervous. And Ruth says, all right. And she shrugs, taking a bite of her sea bass. And Hiram is just bewildered that she's not caring more. And Ruth encourages him to explore and says, clearly, we don't have anything profound. Otherwise, this would be more difficult, wouldn't it? Hiram says, well, it is difficult for me. And Ruth suggests ordering dessert to cheer him up. So, okay, I can actually completely identify with Ruth here. She's just done with the bullshit. Like, she does not give a fuck no more.
I think she was taking the sign. It was like, okay.
Yeah. She just, like, the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
She just doesn't, I mean.
I think she also had a rough day earlier.
Yeah.
She just got fired.
Oh, yeah.
So she's just, her mind is also.
I mean, and she's been foot half out the door or whatever with Hiram, I feel like, because she has these
thoughts
sexual feelings with Nikolai. But also, Nathaniel was her husband. So I feel like her perspective is just, even though she was having an affair on Nathaniel is gone. And
so the affair is not fun anymore, maybe.
Well, I think that's probably a part of it too. But she's just looking at everything else, including Nikolai, kind of as like secondary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like her life is dependent upon this relationship with these men. She's already has her shit together at home. She has her house. She has her life. Her husband's gone. So it kind of lowers the stakes, I guess, for these relationships with her, where, well, that's kind of an interesting way to think about it, because these men, and we'll get to another conversation later between Ruth and Nikolai where they're talking about getting married or whatever. Ruth brings it up. But I wonder if that might be something with Hiram too, that he
wants to get married.
Yeah, the idea of the men looking for a wife to take care of them, where Ruth's perspective is just like, I'm not going to be anybody's fucking wife. I already took care of a man until he died. And you know what I mean? So if you look at it like that, why the fuck would Ruth really care that much about any, she does care, but not in the way that they're caring. They're trying to wife up.
I think Hiram was a little bit too boring for her too.
Yeah, well, for sure.
And I don't know how or why, because Hiram is so nice. Maybe he was just too nice.
Well, and Ruth never even got the chance to experience anybody like Nikolai. You know what I mean?
Yes, she's definitely curious.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how one of them was like, you don't seem upset. And I think Ruth was like, I thought I would be more upset. And Hiram was like, me too. And it was odd that they both estimated, I think they both overestimated how upset that one person would be. So Hiram probably spent 4 days practicing those 3 lines. I am seeing someone else. I never meant for this to happen. I wasn't looking. I'd like to pursue it. Those 4 sentences. He practiced those 1,800 times probably. Finally got it out, and it was like,
nothing.
So what would you like for dessert?
Yeah, which probably hurt him.
Yes.
But
and I feel like that would hurt my feelings too. Not that I would want them to be upset. I don't think that Hiram wants Ruth to be upset, but I think that it's telling, ooh, it's kind of like not a good, that was not fun.
Yeah. No.
So I wonder if she's just thinking, okay, now I get to go fuck Nikolai.
Yeah. It's like the guilt is lifted now and she can just, okay, well.
Like it's out what she wanted the whole time maybe, but didn't know and didn't want to be the one to do it.
Maybe. Well, she's very much been indecisive because a couple episodes ago she was like, I would never marry Nikolai and I don't want to jeopardize my job and whatever. I choose Hiram.
Oh, yes.
And then Nikolai was all sad because she chose Hiram and now she's back. I don't know. So interesting. Very interesting dynamics there. Nate walks into Brenda's hospital room and she is fine, but she has a bandage on her head and they're happy to see
Nate
each
has
other.
one too.
Did he? Oh, he had a Band-Aid. Yeah. Just right on his forehead. Brenda apologizes to him for the accident. Nate tells her that he prayed for her when she was unconscious. And he says to her, you're an incredibly difficult and sometimes infuriating woman. And I can't imagine my life without you. Promise me you'll take care of yourself and you'll live as long as you can because I don't know what I'd do if I lost you. So if you want to get married, I'm all for it. And then they agree to take it one step at a time and they kiss. It was a very, very, very loving, sweet moment.
Yes. Now, of course, Nate wants to get married after he thought Brenda was dead, which I guess I like. And I also have thoughts on it. I think it's very sweet in a very intimate moment. And it just goes to show how much people don't understand how much they love somebody or what they have until it's gone.
Yeah.
And for their sake, or thankfully for them, Brenda wasn't really gone, but it was enough of a shocking. Yes. And why can't we just do that on a daily basis? I mean, you don't have to walk around thinking,
right.
Oh, Chloe, if I keep thinking you're dead. Like, let's just figure out, stop fighting or whatever.
I feel like we're both a little tired this time.
Are any of our words making sense here?
I feel like we're both saying weird shit.
We're going to walk back and it's going to be like a Donald Trump speech. It's just a bunch of words put together and nothing is making sense. And somehow it's still entertaining.
Yeah. Courtney had a long day. I'm tired. I don't know.
And to be fair, my notes don't really make sense either. So I'm like reading scripture and then trying to speak the scripture, but in a different language. So
decipher it. Yeah. Okay. So we're finally circling back. Did I interrupt you? Did you?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Oh, just tell people that you love them.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. So we're finally circling back to the Deacon Club at St. Bartholomew's, which a few episodes ago we were wondering what the hell ever happened with David becoming a deacon. And now we're back to that storyline again. We were cooled off on that for a while. So Father Jack, this is one of the deacons, Walter, or maybe he's not a deacon, but he's in the committee, whatever. Says Father Jack doesn't deny he's performed a commitment ceremony for 2 lesbians, which just the way he said it made me laugh out loud. And there's one woman on the committee named Connie who is defending Father Jack. Love Connie. And the bitchy guy, Walter, insists that they should ask him to leave. I'm sure David agrees. And David sees the ghost of Mark Foster staring at them through the window and he responds, actually, I don't. They get into a spat about whether being gay is genetic or not. Connie raises her eyebrows, impressed with David, when he says, Walter, the only way you could possibly know that for sure is if it were something you overcame. And in that line, basically, he was insinuating, oh, so you're saying, like, you must be gay then, Walter. If you know that, then you must have experienced that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then Walter's response is, and the only way you couldn't know it is if it's something you're not strong enough to overcome. So I think that he was retorting to David saying, I don't know how to say this. David was saying to him, you're fucking gay if you care so much about this. Uh-huh. And Walter was saying, no, you're fucking gay because you can't.
He was too weak to overcome it, like me.
Yeah.
I just actually am walking around pretending I'm not gay.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. I don't know why that was so hard for me to explain what was going, but I feel like that's what they're saying. I think Walter's gay. And did you think that?
I didn't put that together until you're saying it now. It makes 100% sense.
I think Walter's fucking gay.
Where's the whiteboard?
Is Walter gay? Then he says, "Are you gay, David?" And David says, "Yes."
I was so fucking happy. The whole situation was upsetting, watching David try to navigate this whole Father Jack gay thing with the rest of this council. And I love that he sees Mark in the window. This is a really awesome moment for David right now. I was so happy. I just wanted to be there with him, like Mark in the window. Also, time the fuck out. Why is there a meeting about a fax that came to the funeral home about Father Jack? Is this third grade?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah. Like, what? I want to know the backstory behind how that.
Who called
came to
who
be.
and said we need to have a meeting? And then how did all of them agree that this was something that they needed to have a meeting about? Because it clearly, we don't even have proof that Father Jack is gay.
No. And no one knows who sent the fax.
This is bullshit. I'm pissed.
That's a good point. Why? How did this come to be a meeting?
I don't
If it
know.
was
I
sent-
literally,
if I were David, I would have crumpled it up and thrown it in the garbage.
100%.
So how did this happen?
The only thing that would make sense is if every person who owns a fax within a 13-mile radius of this church committee got it. Because why would you make a big deal about it?
And maybe that did happen. Maybe
But they
somebody
didn't
else
tell
got
us.
it. Yeah. Okay.
So
So
annoying.
back at the funeral home, Tracy is maniacally going over the details for Lillian's service while Rico listens. She calls him an underling, which of course kind of pisses him off, and Rico unveils Aunt Lillian's casket, and Tracy insists that there's a nick in the wood and they need to return it. So Rico says that's not possible, and Tracy tries to fight with him about it, but he tells her he can bring her aunt's body up and she can take it somewhere else. She doesn't have a response to that. So
It was funny. It was, but I also hated Rico at this this moment.
He still has his likable moments. He is a very funny character.
Yeah,
He just is.
I think that there was a better way to handle the situation,
Yes.
but it was great.
So Ruth answers the phone at home. She's in the kitchen.
I loved this.
So it's Hiram, and she's saying, "Oh, Hiram, there's nothing to talk about." And then Claire comes downstairs and tells Ruth that she's staying the night at Parker's, and Ruth hangs up on Hiram and tells Claire to have Parker's mom call her.
I died at the fact that when Ruth hung up on Hiram, she goes, "Men can be so stupid." And I'm like, amen, Ruth, amen. And she's saying that because why is Hiram calling?
He broke up with her.
I know. This is so weird.
I also love how she's so comfortable saying that stuff in front of Claire or to Claire, and how Claire has just kind of made a safe environment.
Yeah, she really has made it a safe space for her.
Yeah.
Which is what I think Ruth really needed that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I think Claire's a good person to have that safe space, because I don't think Claire is in danger of
Like getting butthurt about it. Like David or Nate might. Well, Nate doesn't, but
I can't see it negatively affecting Claire.
yeah.
As if maybe she was like 14 or not as mature as she was.
Right.
I mean, really, truly, even if
She's not judgmental.
if it was in any other 17-year-old girl, I think it would have been a tough, weird conversation.
So Nate is in Brenda's hospital room watching her sleep, and the doctor comes in and tells Nate that he needs to talk to him in private later, then goes to tend to Brenda. And I was like, what the fuck? Why would he just say that to Nate? Like, oh, I got to talk to you later. But then
That
in
is
private.
so funny. That's what Chloe picked out of this. And I was thinking, what is Nate thinking right now while the doctor's talking to Brenda? Oh my God.
she was having a weird dream, saying weird shit.
I think I know, because I wrote, what the fuck is Nate thinking right now? Because you could see that he looks like he's thinking.
Yeah.
He's either farting or thinking. And the things that Brenda was saying were kind of bizarre, right? She had this weird dream
about Drew Barrymore
kinda
and a
out of
dolphin
it.
or something.
Yep. And Courtney Love and the dolphins were flying. And now reading and hearing what your thoughts were, I wonder if Nate is thinking that Brenda's fucked. Like she has all this brain damage and she's like a child.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean?
Interesting.
But at first, when I first watched it, the look on his face of that thinking moment, I was thinking that Nate was thinking that this doctor and Brenda were like canoodling.
It was kind of weird because it was like a young doctor.
Yeah, a very.
And there was it was like almost kind of like flirtatious vibes in a way.
Or you could look at it as he was being in what this is so much. What Nate probably was thinking was that he was talking to Brenda as a child because Brenda might have brain damage and have whatever. We know that's not the case. But now that we're talking about it together, I think that's what he was actually thinking.
That they were flirting? No, the kids.
The kid part.
Okay.
But when I first was watching it, I thought that he was thinking they were flirting.
Interesting.
If you're stoned listening to this right now, good luck understanding what I just said.
I do understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But yeah, that I did not come up with that about her acting all loopy or whatever. Another thought could be that, well, because the doctor came in and was like, Nate, I got to talk to you later.
Privately,
and then goes to tend to Brenda. So he might be thinking, oh God, Brenda has some kind of terminal illness they discovered that he needs to tell me about later, like scared of what the doctor is going to tell him about Brenda. And I don't think that this is the case, but just another idea could be that he's worried about what he's going to tell him about himself, which is actually what happens and what he should be scared for.
That was not what he was
I
scared
don't think that's what he was thinking at all.
I think that it was Brenda has some sort of brain damage.
And he was like trying to figure out what was going on. Then we see David drinking scotch with Father Jack in his quarters, I don't know, venting about the debacle with Walter, and tells Father Jack, good for you for marrying two lesbians. And Father Jack says, my high school girlfriend, which was so cute. And David tells Father Jack that they will fight Walter and they're gonna not let them win. And Father Jack confesses to David that he doesn't think that's a good idea because he's agreed to not officiate any other gay weddings in exchange for being able to stay at the church. And he then proceeds to tell David he needs David to resign as a deacon, which is so sad. And he says to David, I know which battles can be won, David. This is not one of them. Then it comes out that Father Jack is not actually fucking gay. He says, I'm not, because David was like, what do you mean? Like, you're gay? He says, I'm not. People have always assumed that, but I'm not. Sorry. And so, okay, I think he actually is, but I don't know. What do you think?
So this was my thoughts in the moment of time.
Oh, yeah. You had some weird thoughts about this.
I love seeing David and Father Jack drinking, trying to figure out who sent this fax. And I had a feeling that it might be Father Jack for some reason. I don't know why I think this, but it just seems kind of weird. There's just a lot going on. I feel like Father Jack knew that David was gay and Father Jack is not gay, but he wanted to get David out of there. So this was his way of doing that by sending the Father Jack is gay fax. I swear to God, it has to be him.
So you think that Father Jack was like creating this
scenario. He created the chaos
to push.
One, make himself look good.
Why? How does that make him look good?
Because he won't officiate gay marriages anymore. And it now has to come out that he's not gay. So he has to
once and for all say, I'm not gay. But also then too, I wonder if in a way he wanted, since he knew that David was gay, he wanted to put him in this position of either coming out himself or agreeing to get rid of Father Jack. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, hold on. Let's dial it back for a sec. So Father Jack's the one that got David this deaconship. Mm-hmm. I think he did so not knowing that David was gay at the time. I don't know why I'm just saying that right now.
But I remember...
Devil's advocate me.
Well, whenever we first met Father Jack, David and him had that conversation where he said, Father Jack was like, oh, I haven't seen you around here for a while. And he's like, oh, yeah, I've been going to St. Stephen's in West Hollywood. And he's like, oh, well, I hope you always feel as welcome here as you did there. Basically, AKA saying, oh, you're gay. Cool. But then it was after that where he said, oh, we need a new deacon. Do you want me to submit your name? So he knew he was gay when he submitted him to
Or
be
did we just assume?
I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's any other interpretation of that interaction because he said West Hollywood and he's like, oh, I hope you always feel as welcome.
That's a good point
there. To be honest with you, I think this whole idea is a stretch. I don't think that Father Jack was trying to do that because I think ultimately he knew David was gay when he came into the deaconship, and so why would he put him in that position if he was just gonna like fuck up his life later, you know?
Yeah.
But I do get what you're saying, that he was like trying to free David.
But that's not what I was trying to say at all. But I actually really like that.
What do you mean? What are you trying to say?
I was trying to say that
like he was trying to build himself up.
Yep, I was trying, in a very simple way to put it, I think Father Jack, at the time I was typing this, I thought Father Jack didn't know that David was gay, got him the deaconship, and then eventually found out that David was gay, didn't like it anymore, didn't know how to get rid of David. So he creates this entire chaotic scene to solidify the fact that he himself is not gay and get David out of there. And I still think that's a possibility, but I actually really like yours so much more. And I think you are right because
I don't
I know it's not yours, but your interpretation of my words.
Yeah.
I like your interpretation of my words way better. And I think that might be the one.
I don't think that, but I accept that you think that.
Okay, hold on, but let me put yours into simple terms. Your interpretation was that
my interpretation or my interpretation of your interpretation?
Your interpretation of my interpretation. Father Jack sees that David is gay, gets him the deaconship, and wants to help him come out, and sees that after all these months, 6 months now, has still not come out, but loves and wants him to be free to be who he is, and creates this chaos to then finally get him to come out. And then says, sorry, but you have to leave the job. Why is that so funny?
Because it's not what happened. Yeah, that's what I thought you were trying to say, I think. But no, I think
I like mine better. Actually, I like your interpretation. My interpretation.
I mean, it's a nice thought, but it doesn't add up for me, because I think Father Jack definitely knew David was gay this whole time. And I still kind of think.
So you don't think Father Jack sent it?
No.
Okay. So only both of my interpretations?
I think it was Walter.
So only two of me. Ooh.
Because he's the biggest bitch about it.
I think it was Walter.
And he's always trying to stir up a fuss about gay people. And I also think that Walter is gay.
Yeah. I like her shorter interpretation of herself. It's all good. And I'm with it. I
you just really wanted to find out who it was.
Yes, I was in investigation mode. And you got to.
Who knows?
It just goes to show you can't be the only investigator on the case. You have to.
It's always good to have different theories.
Yes, and sometimes you yourself have a couple.
Yeah. Exponents.
It's a Laban's squared.
We just made like multiple exponents of each other's ideas.
And we still don't know what's going on. So if whoever's watching this, if you could just type in the comments what we just said in like 2 sentences, that'd be great.
We have no idea. Okay.
All right.
Claire and Gabe they arrive at Parker's party, and
we're only this far into the fucking
we're only 30 minutes in. Yeah, we have been, I don't know.
I hope this is a good one.
So Gabe is convinced that this is a porn party. He's like, this is a porn party. I'm telling you, they're shooting a porno here. And a guy walks by and gives them a weird look. There's just weird vibes all around at this party, honestly. Yeah. Like there was like some people from their high school, but then also some fucking weird ass people. Who knows where they get these people from in LA. It was just random crew.
Small town.
Yeah, small town LA. And a guy walks by, gives him a weird look. They both laugh. They're like, what the fuck was that? And Gabe says, faggot, calls this guy a faggot. And Claire's like, hey, shut up. My brother's a faggot.
I love that line.
And yes, Gabe says, oh yeah, I'm sorry. That was actually really nice. Like, don't say that word. That's not okay to say that word. But still nice of Claire to defend David and nice of Gabe to apologize. And they find Parker in the kitchen straddling some interesting looking dude. And they say what's up to her. But take a moment for a second. Well, I know that you were like literally driving when you watched this episode, but did you see that guy that she was making out with, Parker?
I mean, I saw the person.
He was bald. He was like
balding or just shaved his head?
He had a shiny head. Like, I don't know. Keith? I don't know. Yes. Like, had a bald Keith head. He looked short. ish and was wearing really tight clothes, like a really tight t-shirt and really tight skinny jeans or something. And his body was not, it was like a little stout looking, I don't know. It was just weirded me out so much. I feel like maybe the vibe they were trying to give was that she was making out with some eccentric
like
older person, but he was not hot. I don't know. It was just the weirdest thing. I was like, who is she making out with?
It's a different type of person than the camp instructor.
Yeah. There was just nothing appealing to me. It was just very, it was bizarre. Anyway, I needed to
Which
take
is
a
Parker
moment.
doing what she does best.
Yes. Being as fucking crazy as possible.
I basically had the same thoughts. The faggot thing struck me. I love Claire. Just like said the same words. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
My brother's a faggot.
Don't say that word, but
Yeah, it was. She didn't say that.
But I feel like that was such a. It was like, remember the Hillary Duff commercial where she's like, "Don't say gay."
No,
You don't? It came out when we were in middle school, I feel. But it was
Okay.
like Hillary Duff. And it was, I feel like, a cultural shift after that time. It was when it stopped being okay to say gay. But we used to
As
even
in
always
gay.
say, that's so gay.
Yes.
That's so
Christina
gay.
was the worst.
I know.
Christina
I said
Michelle.
it too. Yeah. It was.
I
We
remember
all
her
did.
mom being like, "What does that even mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?"
Well, and it made no sense, but that was just something we said.
You used it as a
so
derogatory
much.
term.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, Hillary Duff had her commercial where she came out and she was like, I can't remember what it was, but she went up to some girls and said something like, don't say that. And then it wasn't okay to say that anymore.
Hillary Duff.
Yeah, love her. But anyway, same thing with this word. That used to be such, it was the same as we would say gay. People used to say that.
As a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now they're,
And now it's like, just don't say her.
Uh-huh.
But this was also 2000.
Right. So Claire was doing her best there and it was good.
Mm-hmm.
So Nate is talking to the doctor and he's showing him x-rays of his brain, telling him something's not right. And at first Nate thinks that the x-rays are Brenda's brain. But then the doctor tells Nate that he wants him to have an MRI so that they can figure out what's going on.
Of course, these are Nate's brain scans. So he's obviously fucked. I also just want to point out the doctor wouldn't just be talking about Brenda's health without Brenda present,
Yeah.
especially not with Nate. They're not even married.
Yeah.
So if there's something wrong with you and they're showing you brain scans of whatever it is that he was trying to say, he wouldn't do it in private.
Safe to assume that's your brain.
Yes. It is. If you get pulled into a room and somebody's showing you brain scan pictures, it's probably yours.
That's a really good logistical point to point out.
And I'm not usually logical, so that was a big deal for me to point that out.
Yeah. Then Parker calls Ruth pretending to be Parker's stepmom, and she is pretty convincing. She has a very good adult sounding voice. Of course, she has to be a little bit of a cunt here, and she tells Ruth that there's no alcohol in the house because she and her husband are both alcoholics, and Parker's fresh out of rehab, so we'll take real good care of Claire.
So
I promise. Kisses and hangs up. And Claire was like, that was mean.
Mm-hmm.
And it was mean.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
I don't think Ruth cared.
She was just like, it was like she couldn't, I think what was going through Ruth's head was,
I'm going to go fuck Nikolai.
oh, well, yeah, that too. But also, what do you say? How do you even get out of that situation?
True.
Oh, we're alcoholics, but we don't drink, and oh, Parker's out of rehab. It's like,
It's
okay.
unsettling,
Yeah.
but you still don't know what to say.
And Ruth being so Ruth, she is not going to start any controversy or anything. Like, what is she going to do? But
Okay.
oh, and then at the pool, Gabe is talking to Andy and another friend that they called Dink, apparently. And they tell Gabe about their beer cow shenanigans the night before. They're idiots. They basically tell him that they robbed a liquor store by mooing at the cashier and taking the beer and running out. And they're like cracking up about it. So stupid.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, actually.
But in that moment, too, was the moment that Gabe took the joint. He had declined it at first, and then after they were laughing about that, he's like, okay, and then he took the joint and hit the joint. So we see him start slipping a little bit. So I think obviously he's been trying to stay
sober and clean and
at least
and mentally
clean, yeah, because he OD'd or whatever. But then back at the doctor's office, the doctor informs Nate that he suspects he has a condition called AVM, which is arteriovenous malformation, which means that he has abnormally enlarged and intertwined blood vessels in his brain. and Nate demands to know the worst case scenario, and the doctor apprehensively tells him that he's at a higher risk for a stroke or seizure than most, but that they need to do more tests to be certain. And Nate asks if he could die from this, and the doctor says yes, it's possible. And then Nate kind of starts to spiral a little, just stressing out, which this is a huge moment in the series because from here on out, it's going to be a major plot point, Nate's AVM.
Yes. And from an outsider's perspective, I think it's easy to see these kinds of situations for somebody else and not feel the severity that you're feeling inside your body. But I can see, have you ever gone to the doctor and they're like, oh, we found a lump in your breast? Or I had a CAT scan one time and they had to call me back on a Friday and they're like, yeah, we found something on your brain scan. Mm-hmm. So for the whole weekend, I'm like planning my funeral. And it turns out it was an infarcture, which is just, it's like my head moved a little bit in the MRI. And so it made a little black line.
Oh.
But they couldn't have the radiologist check it until Monday. So I didn't know any of this stuff. So anyways, I don't want to discredit the spiral that Nate's going down. Because I think
it's a very natural response.
You get a blood result comes back and it says abnormal. You're like, all right, let's go skydiving. This is all I got left here, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a very natural response. I personally, luckily, don't want to jinx myself, but I've never really had a health scare like that before. But I also never go to the doctor.
I was just going to say that. That's one way to not have the health scares.
I need to go. I talked to my doctor virtually, but I haven't gone in for a checkup for a really long time, and I need to.
Yes, you got to get your vagina looked at, your butt.
It's so weird because I had a virtual session with my doctor. I literally only do that twice a year.
Did you bend over and ask her?
No, but she told me, she's like, you need to come in and do like a checkup or whatever, and I'm due for a pelvic exam. So, and that was just literally 2 days. It was it was yesterday. What day is it? Saturday, right? It was yesterday.
Idea. Oh.
Yeah, it was on Friday. So weird conversation to have right after that. But yeah. I know other people too. I have other friends who have had big health scares. Cysts are a big one.
Yes. And I feel like a lot of people they try to, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You don't know anything. And that doesn't help. Mm-hmm. And I've probably been the person that has said that to somebody before. I think in moments like this, when people are spiraling, let them spiral for a minute. Because worst case scenario is what they're spiraling. Best case scenario, they don't have an issue, but they did just have a reconnection in their brain of things that they might want to do differently. Does that make sense? My point is, let people feel their feelings and spiral for a minute. You can bring them back, but let them just venture down that path of what ifs, because then they can maybe make that phone call that they haven't wanted to make. And
yeah, if you keep somebody at bay or away from the edge too much, then they might not be able to fully process things and reap the benefits that you get from processing emotion.
Yes. And then you get oh, just kidding, it was an infarcture.
Yeah.
And hopefully. You're like, sweet. Well, I still do kind of want to try this new business adventure or whatever it is, since I'm not dying tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I think those scares sometimes definitely can be useful. So then next we see Nate and Brenda in the car with Ruth, and Ruth is freaking out on Nate, asking why he didn't tell her right away about the car accident though.
Did you think it was weird that they didn't show Brenda right away? I actually didn't know Brenda was in the car until
I didn't notice, I guess.
Okay.
Why do you think that was weird?
Because Ruth is asking Nate oh my God, I'm so blah 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 blah, as he has his little Band-Aid on his forehead. And then 3 minutes go by and she goes, and how are you, honey? And Brenda was just like, I'm good, thank you. Like annoyed that nobody said anything to her with this giant Band-Aid on her head.
I didn't put that together, but yeah, I guess that is. I kind of want to go back and watch that scene now, because at first Ruth was just like, why? I can't believe you didn't tell me, blah, 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 blah. But Nate is in the front seat and Brenda's in the back seat. And Ruth makes them, she says eventually to both of them, makes them promise to be more careful. But
which is an odd promise.
It did, and she did ask Brenda how she was doing, but it was, I think there could be.
It was like an afterthought, it felt like.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so then after they promise to be more careful, Nate sees Nathaniel in the car with them, and Nathaniel says to him, oh boy, this time it's personal. And Brenda's starting to sense that something's up with Nate, and he clearly hasn't told her about the AVM diagnosis yet. So I think when Nathaniel said, oh, this time it's personal, I think he was talking about death.
Yep.
Basically, because they're dealing with death all the time on an impersonal basis.
Yep.
With clients. But now he is being faced with a potentially fatal disease. And he's like, oh, this time it's personal. Like, oh, now you're dealing with death and it's coming to you. So then Parker is making out with the dude from the party, and Claire walks in and is looking for Gabe. And we see that Gabe is at the liquor store with Dumb and Dumber, his friends, Andy and Dink, and they try to pull a beer cow again. Shockingly, though, Gabe, as they're doing this beer cow thing, pulls out a fucking gun and points it at the cashier, demanding that he says moo. And Andy and Dink are terrified. They're like, where did you get that? Gabe demands the money out of the register and they take off. Fuck Gabe. Like, what the fuck? It was just a shocking. I mean, he is just clearly erratic and
Out of his mind.
not safe. Yeah. Which is sad because I didn't think that's how he was.
No, it came out of nowhere,
Yeah.
it feels like. And we've seen this more than one. At least this is not the first time we're seeing this, and I'm still shocked. I was like, Gabe, you really had to take this 16 steps too far. This stupid ass mooing game could have been just a stupid ass mooing game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very irritated.
Mm-hmm.
And also, is that the gun that his brother
Oh, God.
shot himself with?
That's
I don't
a
know if they would
scary
give it
thought.
back if it's part of...
I don't know. That's a sad, sick thought, though.
Yeah, I'm curious if that ever comes up to be anything.
I don't know.
Oh, and I loved this next one.
Yes, David is at a cafe having coffee with Keith, asking him for advice on what to do about the deacon resignation situation. Keith is really starting to see that David has been putting in the work. I feel like David doesn't even realize how far that he has come himself. And David also tells Keith that he came out to Ruth. David thanks Keith for meeting him and says he just needed someone to talk to and he could always talk to him. And Keith says he's glad that they've managed to remain friends and leaves to go meet Eddie, who mentioned to Keith that he saw David at Mark Foster's vigil.
I also think that's weird. How did he didn't see him at the vigil? He was standing at the vigil
They
and then he drove
awkwardly
by.
made eye contact as David drove by.
I didn't like that scene because it just seems so odd. That would never happen in LA.
Yeah. It
But
is
whatever,
a
it's a
little
show.
contrived, but yeah. And
not
also
realistic.
why
And what would he have said? Oh, I saw David driving his car on a street that went past the vigil.
Yeah.
That just seems odd to me. What were they talking about?
It is kind of obvious that Keith and Eddie probably do talk a lot about David because
Yes.
he's dragging him around to all this shit and they run into each other and it's just like,
I wonder if Eddie knows about were they in Las Vegas? Yeah, the Las Vegas.
oh yeah, I
situation.
wonder.
Probably. But I was obsessed with David and Keith talking because you can totally hear, like you were saying, you don't think that he even understands how much growth that he's done, David.
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel and hear the passion behind David's voice. And so I know that Keith knows that this isn't just a facade. And it's very obvious that this is coming from an actual piece of David's heart, not just
Mhm.
trying to be something that he thinks Keith wants to hear. And Keith is a great person to talk to about this because he is so good at fighting for gay rights. And this is just making me all sorts of happy.
Yes. And then Claire is sitting alone at the party watching the other people that are there doing drugs from across the room. She's feeling sad and scared because she doesn't know where Gabe is. And Nathaniel appears and starts talking to Claire. And he tells her that he likes Gabe. Something about him, can't quite put my finger on it. And then Gabe busts back in the house with the other twat waffles and is all horned up from the adrenaline, kissing on Claire.
I
and
noticed
she's
that. It was so
confused.
gross.
It was gross. He's like all up on her, trying to kiss her. And she was like, where were you? What happened? He's like, oh, we just went to go get some beer. Then Tracy is back at the Fishers and Nate answers the door and she asks to speak to David. And Nate says that he doesn't know where he is, but asks if he can help her. She's freaking out as per usual. And Nate matches her energy and forces her to sign the contract, basically.
I put LO fucking L with Nate and Tracy. That was perfect, getting her to sign the contract. He is on one right now. Nate's on he also is on an adrenaline rush. Just same as Dib.
Yeah. Just kind of fuck it energy.
Yeah.
I can't remember what he said to Tracy, though, to make her sign the contract. He was just
He
like,
said, oh, we can take $100 off the casket. And she's like, I want a new one. And he said, well, you never signed the contract, right? So you basically could back out of this whole thing with blah, 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 blah. I want you to sign this contract right now. Otherwise, we're going to call the whole thing off.
It was something along those lines. He basically put her in her place, said something like, you could just back out. So why would we do that? And if you want us to do this, then great. I'll get that contract. You can sign it and then we'll be happy to do whatever.
What an odd thing to bring into this episode too. I'm just confused about this. Were we at any point ever worried that Tracy wasn't going to pay for the thing? Like, why wouldn't Tracy just sign the contract? And why is there such a big deal around this?
Yeah, I don't know what it was that was so hard for her. I think it obviously somehow connected to her not wanting
This
I think
to be true?
Yeah, I think in her head she was thinking, I signed this contract. I have to admit to myself that Aunt Lillian is gone and she's the only person who's ever really loved me. So I think that was probably
which would make sense about the casket then.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's putting off.
It's like, oh no,
She's creating more barriers
before, so she doesn't have to face it.
Yeah,
that was
I
really
do that
sad.
sometimes in the morning when I don't want to do what I have to do.
Yeah,
tackle other things at first.
Yeah,
totally
wow.
different, but
she's definitely
that would make sense, like you said.
What do you call that?
Deflecting.
Yeah, stalling or
Stalling probably is a good word too.
So Claire has another dream about Nathaniel. He's taking a video of her coming down the stairs and Claire tells him, it's too little too late. What are you trying to get your wings? And Nathaniel asks about Gabe again. And this time he says, he'll be heading over to my neck of the woods pretty soon. And the camera like zooms in on Claire and she's just like terrified. And she wakes up on the couch at Parker's with Gabe and he snuggles her and kisses her head, which is sad this time because he's such a fuck.
Yeah. That's a lot. I put this in there. I don't know how much I believe this actually, but I wonder if it's because she has a feeling that he's going to commit suicide or if this is actually really going to happen. I can't remember and I have no idea what Gabe's life entails, but I guess at this point Claire would have nothing else to think other than that he was going to end up committing suicide. But I think at this point it's going to get him, he's going to get killed, but she doesn't know yet that he did his shit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and you're really looking at this from the perspective of Nathaniel being everyone's own personal thoughts.
Yep.
Where this is almost a situation where he actually is kind of coming off as more of himself because she really doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think what you're saying is right, is that she's just scared he's going to hurt himself or get himself hurt.
Yes.
But yeah, she doesn't know how real that fear actually is becoming.
How much of a reality it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it is.
So Nate we really quick see him out on a run. He's really super exerting himself. And even though the doctor told him not to run, so he's really zipping around. So it's like, what the fuck? What was that about? He's just.
His defiant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like.
Very defiant. Stupid moment to be defiant.
Yeah.
So then Ruth walks into the flower shop to find Nikolai sitting in a chair in the dark, and he tells her she's fired and to go home. Ruth says, dear God, have you been here all night? He's just sitting there alone, and he tells her to go drive in the woods with your man who burns chicken in a funny little toy car. And Ruth says she stopped by to get her things, hoping she wouldn't run into him. And while she's gathering her things, Nikolai asks her, is he rich? And Ruth's like, what? No. So he's a good lover, yeah? That's none of your business. And then this was a crazy scene. I feel like a crazy intimate scene for them. But Nikolai says, because you are the kind of woman who needs a good lover. And Ruth asks why. And he says, because you're so scared of feeling. You're scared of your own heart. You should have a man who can touch you there, who sees your beauty. I hoping he is this man for you.
Oh, I thought that was really sweet.
It was so sweet. And it was filmed from Nikolai was behind Ruth and Ruth had her back toward him.
So you could see, he couldn't see Ruth's face, but we could see her face.
We could see her face. And we could see Nikolai's face. And he was like just very speaking passionately to her from like behind.
I also want to point out that the two questions that Nikolai asked Ruth about Hiram was money and sex. And so those, you can see where Nikolai's priorities lie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. But yeah, Ruth slowly approaches Nikolai and embraces him in a very passionate kiss, which I don't blame her. I would probably do the same because that was a very sweet monologue.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
And I think that is it. He basically perfectly described what she was missing with Hiram there.
Yeah.
Even though Hiram asked her to show her how she masturbates.
Okay, and I was still stuck on that because my thoughts
Why
on Hiram.
wasn't there passion between them?
Right. I'm confused about that. There has to be like some sort of weird plot hole because
Maybe they didn't have a very good chemistry.
that's also possible. Maybe he tried
Yeah.
because Hiram kind of checks all the boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Isn't that how it always goes?
yeah, but then it seemed like Hiram was checking all the boxes except for maybe the intimacy part, which is confusing to me because we heard I was stuck on that, the self pleasure, asking him to her to self pleasure in front of him. So I don't know.
Right. Like that was a very big moment reveal.
That's a box to check too.
That tells you that he is not like inept in that area.
He's not vanilla.
Yeah.
He's caring. So
Well, maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe he is a little vanilla, but he still knows how to have sex. He's not completely inept, but it's just not as spicy as she likes it. I don't know.
I think you're right the first time. I bet there was just lack of chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
Yes. So they finally kiss, which we know she's been waiting for forever.
Yes. And David is at church listening to Father Jack's sermon. I'm sorry, Catholic Church is so creepy. This creeped me out seeing this whole scene. It's scary to me. I'm saying that as someone who used to go to Catholic Church.
That's why you're saying it
regularly and as a child, and it was scary for me. So that's why I feel that way.
Up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So it's like dark in there, and the seats are really hard, and it's cold. It's just it's very tall ceilings and big pillars and stained glass windows, and you just feel like you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's just ugh. Anyway.
I don't like the fear behind it.
So, okay. David gets up to read his sermon, which is about shame. And we see Keith is in the audience with
David
Eddie.
doesn't see him, though.
No, David didn't know they were there. David starts to go off script and preach about how he has been living in shame his entire life. Let me never be ashamed. There's a concept. I've been ashamed my entire life. I grew up thinking I was unworthy in the eyes of God instead of trusting God not to be an ignorant, frightened bigot. Because of this, I've made myself crazy. I've put myself in danger. I've made a lot of mistakes, big mistakes, which all could have been avoided if I had faith. Faith that maybe God really is love, like we say. How am I supposed to spread God's love throughout the world when I deny it to myself? God be with you all. So Keith, Father Jack, and Connie, the one who was defending Father Jack at the little meeting, they all look at David adoringly from the audience. Walter, the bitchy guy, is miffed, and David turns and envisions the stained glass windows of the church to be an image of a priest receiving oral sex from a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's just seeing here like every possible negative thing he can imagine and processing through his overcoming of his fear, kind of, because he sees that and he's kind of like disturbed for a second, but then he just ignores it and goes back to being proud of himself. So I think he's
hearing all the claps.
Yeah, I think like he's just kind of, it basically is, they're showing us him getting over all these road bumps, essentially, of his
all at once
fears, about being gay. And then after the service, David is approached by several people and praised for his sermon. He sees the ghost of Mark Foster, who is now completely healed.
Yes.
And Mark says thank you to David, because before, when he was seeing his ghost, he was all badly beaten up. And Keith approaches David with Eddie, hugs him, and tells him he's so proud of him. And Eddie also tells David that his sermon was great, and David is delighted to see them, aka Keith, and tells them that he didn't even know they were there. And Keith tells him that he had to see what he was going to do, because earlier when they met at the coffee shop, David had told Keith that he had to give a sermon. And Eddie invites David out to eat with them, which was sweet of him.
Weird.
Yeah, also awkward. And David politely declines, and then Eddie awkwardly gives Keith and David a moment alone and walks away ahead of them. And Keith tells David to not be a stranger, and then he goes after Eddie. So I was happy that Keith, I feel like it probably meant a lot to David that Keith was there for that huge moment for him. But it's also just a stab in the heart to have him there with Eddie.
Yes. I also felt like a threesome vibe when Eddie asked him out for dinner and drinks or whatever. I'm like, oh, brother.
Okay.
That's why I was like, okay, this is getting somewhere.
I wonder if Keith is into that. Keith gives me more like monogamous vibes, kind of.
Yes, I agree. I also wanted to point out here that Father Jack did, like you were saying, give a very good reaction to David's speech. Just don't get why he asked him to step down.
Yeah, well, he basically had to. It was like part of his agreement that because he agreed to not officiate any gay weddings, and then he agreed, I guess, to also get David to step down because he said he was gay. That was really shitty, though, that had to happen like that.
I don't know. I think I need to sleep on that one because it's just going to irritate me. There's so many things. I do think that you're also right about Walter.
I'm just like getting in my head now thinking more about Father Jack. I don't really know. I don't fully understand either why David had to resign. I think just because he caused such a fuss by coming out. But it's like, why would Father Jack? Yeah, that's interesting that it came down to that.
That's why I keep seeing some sort of intent of malice, but
I don't think there was malice on Father Jack's side. And you're right. Like he was at the end, he reacted very positively and was like proud of David. So I think he is a genuine heart and cares about David and his.
Was he just trying to be like diplomatic about the whole situation?
Yeah, I think it was like just all politics essentially. In why
he did say that actually.
Yeah, but it's still like, what the fuck? Why wouldn't you defend him? Because you know his whole story and everything.
Yeah.
But whatever, I guess it is what it is.
So, yes. I guess it's one of those things we just stop talking about.
I guess.
Okay.
And ultimately, it's good because David is not hiding from anyone anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So back at the flower shop, Ruth is putting her clothes back on, and Nikolai, now in great spirits, suggests going out for a big breakfast. It was so cute. He's like, okay, now we go get big breakfast. Yep. And
I just shot my load. Now I'm hungry.
Ruth is like, oh no, I can't. And he comes up behind her and he's like, well, but it's Sunday. It was so cute. Also, just realized that Ruth missed David's great sermon because she was fucking Nikolai.
Oh, I just realized that too.
Yeah. And Ruth tells Nikolai she's never going to marry him, just kind of out of the blue. She says, I'll be your friend and your lover, but I will never be your wife.
It sounds like a fucking great, I'm done. Yes, sign me up.
Literally. I spent the first half of my life doing that. I do not need to do it again. And Nikolai says, maybe I can convince you. And Ruth says, nope, not going to happen. But she was smoking here in this scene. Like she just looks, she has a few scenes where
she's glowing.
Yeah, it's glowing and looks so beautiful.
Which is funny that you're saying that because I have a note later. I cannot believe that Ruth missed church and fucked Nikolai in the flower shop. That's so hot. Also, don't like Nikolai's comment about maybe I can convince you because no means no, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like earlier, these men just want a wife.
Mm-hmm.
Literally to take care of. And
yeah, you hit that on the nail. Head on the nail. Nail on the head.
We see that more with Nikolai later too. I won't give away any spoilers, but I remember from this series, there's definitely more to come with that. So at Aunt Lillian's service, David approaches Nate and asks him if he's all right after the accident, which was so sweet. It was like a very genuine concern. And he thanks him for making Tracy sign the contract. Then after joking about Tracy being crazy, David also thanks Nate for sticking around and helping to run the business. He says, things have been a lot more fun around here since you've been home. And Nate starts tearing up and hugs him, and the look on both of their faces, oh, I was dying. It was so cute.
Same. The thank you from David was extremely sincere. I felt like David was thanking Nate very explicitly.
It was like he had a fountain opened up within him, and he started coming out. It's just like, oh, I don't have to.
He's not hiding behind anything anymore.
Yeah, or trying to prove anything.
Mm-hmm. So I absolutely loved that.
So then Rico comes in and tells them that he has to run to Augusto's christening. Oh, and that crazy ass niece is upstairs crying and won't come down. And he darts his eyes back and forth between the two and then dips out. He literally was just like,
done with her.
Yeah. And David tells Nate, I think this one is yours. And Nate says, okay, but I'm warning you, I might just fucking punch her. and he pats David on the chest as he goes to walk upstairs, and David giggles and is the cutest thing I've ever fucking seen. He literally giggled like a little, he was like when Nate said that. Like, so they're actually acting like brothers that love each other, and it's just so
for the
adorable.
first time.
Yeah,
It seems like
comfortably. Yeah.
Okay, this is something.
Okay, yeah, this whole scene between Nate and Tracy. So Nate finds Tracy sitting at the dining table upstairs and sits down with her. Tracy says, "My Aunt Lillian was the only person who ever really loved me. My parents didn't." She's crying, by the way. "My parents didn't. My husband certainly didn't. And now she's dead. Her husband died and her daughter died too in this car crash on her 17th birthday. But Aunt Lillian just went on. She raised Welsh corgis and she took up watercolors and she loved me and now she is dead. I've never felt this alone in the world and I'm used to feeling alone. I know what that's like. And now I find out there's this whole new level. Why do people have to die?" And Nate says, "To make life important. None of us know how long we've got, which is why we have to make each day matter. And it sounds like your Aunt Lillian did exactly that." God, this man always knows what to say. Tracy confesses to Nate that sometimes she goes to funerals of people she doesn't even know. And she says, "Harold and Maude is like my favorite movie of all time. I saw it when I was in junior high and it profoundly affected my life." And Nate says, "It's a great movie." And Tracy laughs and tells him that he's very kind and then asks, "Are you married?" Which
She's got to stay in character
yes.
somehow.
And I looked up what Harold and Maude is about because I'd never seen it, and I'm totally going to watch it right after this episode, which I didn't, but I'm still going to. But here's what it's about. Harold and Maude is a 1971 dark comedy about the unconventional romance between Harold, a death-obsessed young man from a wealthy family, and Maude, a free-spirited 79-year-old woman who teaches him to embrace life. Through her, I'm just now putting the pieces together that she was 79 and he's a young man, apparently. Okay, so through her eccentric worldview and zest for living, Maude helps Harold break free from his morbid fascination with death and societal expectations. The film explores themes of love, individuality, and the meaning of life with a mix of humor and poignancy. So that was the movie that she said changed her life. I thought that was really interesting.
And in this moment, I am sympathizing with Tracy a lot because she's extra. Yeah. She is definitely a hard to handle person. And she just lost the one person that she felt was the only person in this world that truly loved her. And as a very extra person myself, I do think that it's hard for some people to handle and to have, I can't imagine to have just only one person that I felt like
truly
was my
you.
person. Yes. And then to have them leave. I think I only have like a handful of people that truly love being in my presence. If I only had one and they died, I don't know.
Tracy doesn't have any kids or a husband. And she said her parents didn't love her.
Yes.
In the last scene of the episode, we see the Diaz family take over the funeral home for Augusto's christening party. And
did you write the same thing as me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Vanessa says, "Hey baby, does that dead lady have to be in here?"
They walk in and they're like, ooh, all excited, like stealing their way in. And Vanessa, she was just like, "Hey."
I love Vanessa too.
She's so cute. "Baby, does that dead lady have to be in here?" But they're a huge Latino family, having a blast. Nate approaches the party and stands in the doorway, gazing lovingly around the room at the joyous celebration. He sees David holding baby Augusto, Ruth and Brenda chatting happily, Claire and Gabe cuddling in the corner, and then Brenda approaches him and asks him what's up. And he tells her he was just thinking about how lucky he is. And Brenda says, "I love you, you know that, right?" And Nate says, "Yeah," and they kiss and embrace as the camera pulls back behind them and shows Nathaniel watching them from the stairs, smiling, and then turn around and walk up the stairs. Holy shit, I got the shivers watching that. I feel like they're telling us something here. So you tell me what your thoughts are, but I have thoughts.
Okay, so I first want to point out, we have to back up. Rico is the one that handed David his baby.
Once again, I feel like he's being performative.
Okay.
That's my
take. I will say it looked like David was really excited about it and was really cute. And then let's talk about Nate standing there from afar watching all of this stuff happen while he thinks that he's got like 6 hours left to live is how he's thinking in his brain. I also don't like how it ended Sure, yeah, it's sweet and kind, and Nathaniel is seen walking upstairs, which I think is symbolizing that he sees the happiness of the family so he can take his ghost and be gone. But there's still so much to unpack here that hasn't been resolved, like the way Rico reacted about David being gay. Father Jack, is he the fucking one that sent the fax? I would bet my life on it. Nate's brain deal. How many hours does he have left to live? And is Ruth going to be pregnant next season with Nikolai's kid? Who knows?
Okay. I don't think that's what was going on with Nathaniel.
Tell me everything.
Okay, well, think about it. I also
Wait, knock, knock. Who's... Holy shit! Literally? Literally. Do you see me? Do you see this?
tell us.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
I didn't even. Okay, but I do think that knock knock, which is the title of the episode, is yes. That who's knocking?
Knock, knock,
Or like-
knocking on heaven's door.
Or like I think there's others like.
Hi. Hi.
Doesn't the Grim Reaper knock too?
Okay, stop.
Or am I making that up? But you get what I'm saying. And what's now? Think of Nathaniel.
This episode 3 hours later.
Seriously though,
You know what's even funnier? I'm not stoned. I've only been drinking water. Also embarrassing.
I
For
really
me.
think I'm just tired.
Yeah.
But think about that. This is like the most crazy scene from the episode. Now that you just made that connection, what do you think Nathaniel is thinking in his head? Not like, oh, you're all good. All right, I'm gonna leave. He's looking at them
Don't
like,
make fun of my first interpretation.
I'm not trying to make fun of it, but
My second interpretation. I'll recant that one.
he's looking at him like,
He's going to dust off a chair.
yeah.
Puke.
And he's like sad. It explains all of the looks on his face because there's a moment where he's like the first time we see him. What?
I just thought of something else.
Oh my God, I thought you saw something over there. Okay.
No.
What?
Remember when Nathaniel says to Claire, he's going to be joining me soon. I don't think it's about Gabe.
I want to know what you remember, but I also don't.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, let's not even try to unpack that. But I'm, thinking that Nathaniel is essentially
Going
like,
to dust a chair
because
off.
first he was looking at the crowd like with happy and love, but then there's a scene where there's a blip where it shows him and he's like his smile kind of falls off his face and he's just looking more like solemn, and then he turns around and walks up. So I feel like he was having a moment where he was like, oh, I love watching everyone so happy, but then he also knows that he's gonna have to welcome someone.
Let's also remember this is a projection of Nate's conscious, and he is also in
Or
I'm
is it though?
dying.
Because he doesn't even ever see him.
Oh, you're right.
So whose conscious is it? I think this was actually just him.
He is really a ghost.
It was like more of a symbolic, like,
Yeah.
it's not like he's a real ghost there, but like it's for us, he's like our ghost. He's telling us shit, the viewers. Yeah, it's deep.
Knock, knocking. Just kidding. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, where were we?
The end. Mate, date, cremate.
Okay, so we've got Eddie, Keith's boyfriend, Dink, the beer cow idiot, and Connie, the supportive female deacon, or maybe not a deacon, but church person. So mate, date, cremate. I'm gonna mate Eddie because he seems fine.
Okay.
Maybe a little. I mean, I don't love him because I want Keith to date David, but whatever. Seems fine. I'm gonna date Connie because she seems so supportive and smart and sassy. I'm gonna cremate Dink because he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah. So yes, I can't disagree with any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add to the mating. I can't even add to it. I don't know if Eddie would be like really good in bed.
Yeah, we haven't been given any indication.
Yes. I would also possibly date him as well.
Yeah.
Which was what I was going to do. But then I realized Connie is the kind of a partner that I would want. But so was Eddie. Eddie seemed really
Yeah. supportive.
and receptive of the fact that Keith
wanted to be there for David.
Yep, and then stepped away when he needed to, even though it kind of looked like he didn't really want to, which I don't blame him.
Right. I loved Connie in this episode. She didn't even really have any lines. It was just her eyebrow raising. It was like in support of David. But anyway, okay, MVP for this episode.
I was gonna say David.
Yeah, me too. For coming out.
I think this is his big.
He finally came out to everyone.
Yeah.
He's finally not hiding anymore.
Or Billy for being committed. Taking one for the team.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what it is.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. We're going to make tier lists for season 1 on the characters, the episodes, and the death scenes.
So stay tuned.
Look out for those. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. We've never even heard of those before, but we're going to do them. And we'll see you back for season 2.
Don't forget to like, share, and follow, and rate us 5 stars, and comment and send your friends all of our things.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you want to make us smile, give us a shout, and
we'll have merch next season.
What would be on our merch?
Mate Day Cremate.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, love you. We'll talk to you later.